You're watching Saturday Anime on the Sci-Fi Channel.
In the anime, when they leave Logtown, they go to another island. That's where they have that story arc where they save the dragon. And I believe in the manga, don't they just go straight to the Grand Line?
Yeah, the dragon arc they have in there with the little girl Apis is just filler. I would have told you to skip it. The only thing is just by the time you get to the episode where they finally make their way up to enter the Grand Line, the villain from the filler arc suddenly hops on to the Going Merry, their ship, that they're given during the Usopp arc. They're given as thanks, and becomes pretty much one of the most recognizable things in the series is just that ship. But the villain hops on to the Going Merry, looks like he's about to go and gets punched, and Luffy just throws him off the ship and you forget about him. It's really the only connective tissue between the filler and the canon stuff.
What I do like about that dragon story is I guess it's giving us a preview of the second season, because that's the first story arc we're getting that's not a backstory. We have the whole crew assembled and they're going on an adventure, and they're all in the roles that they're going to be in for the rest of the series.
It sets up the relationships that you're going to see expanded upon. There's some nice moments even in the filler too. I think one of my favorite moments is Sanji and Zoro are washing the dishes. Sanji just keeps saying, "There you go, Zoro. There you go, Zoro. Zoro. There's another one for you, Zoro." And finally, Zoro's just drying the dishes and just, "You please shut up." It's just this great little character moment in this little bit of filler. It's one of the things that I feel the anime can do really well. Unfortunately, the anime also has its own flaws. I think the manga tends to flow at a better clip, partly because you're able to control the pacing yourself, but the anime can kind of get to be a slog at times. In this rewatch, I found watching the Baratier arc, it starts suffering from what I can only describe as Dragon Ball-itis. Alright, Don Krieg has this new move he's going to use. It's this dangerous new move. Oh, really? Is that possible? Can we all survive it? I don't know. He's never used it before. Then he uses it. Big explosion. And then people are like, "Oh no, is everyone all right? Did anyone survive?" And you see some people are down. Oh wait, Luffy's still standing. Oh my god, Luffy's still standing. And a few more reactions to that. Rinse and repeat. I think that the fights in Arlong Park do a good job of rectifying that, because instead of everyone kind of taking their turn with a fight, all the fights almost go off at the same time. Alright, they go and kind of incapacitate Luffy for a good chunk of the final battle there so that Sanji, Zoro, and Usopp can get their fights in. But they all go off pretty much at the same time. Zoro takes on Hachi, the air-headed, 8-armed swordsman octopus, which I just love being able to say sentences like that. Sanji takes on the Kung Fu Manta Ray Karubi in one of my favorite fights in the whole saga. And Usopp faces Chu, who, going back to ADV alumni being part of the dub cast, the dub voice for Chu was also the voice of Mekazawa from Cromartie High School.
Zoro fighting the octopus guy is a lot like Cody Rhodes went into Hell in the Cell fighting Seth Rollins with a pre-existing injury, where like Zoro is still fucked up from his fight with Hawkeye Mihawk. Even though the octopus dude is a formidable adversary because he is basically double the Zoro. He has 6 sword style. He totally would have been challenging if he wasn't injured, but he was still completely sliced up from Mihawk.
Which is one of my favorite little, alright, we have Wolverine, we need to kind of give Wolverine a handicap here. How do we do that? Alright, well, we have to give him an injury that he can't necessarily heal from quickly. We get that with Zoro. He's still suffering from his injury from Mihawk. It turns what could probably be an easier fight for him into much more of a tougher mountain to climb, to the point where even Zoro's just like, "I'm really fucked up right now. I need to finish this now as quickly as possible." And it's still a struggle for him. And it becomes so compelling to watch because you don't know what's gonna happen here. When Hachi takes his swords and just pretty much turns himself into a blender and Zoro falls right into it, that's another one of those moments where you just can't help but just cringe a little, like, oh god, that's gotta be awful. You wonder how Zoro still has any blood left in him sometimes at the end of his fights.
At the end of every arc, he's almost basically always lying in a bed, passed out, with bandages around him.
Pretty much. Usually taking a nap after his fights are done, and he'll just lay there for a little while. Then he wakes up and, oh, is everything over? Okay, cool. And then just gets up and does whatever. How do you view the importance of Luffy's hat?
Luffy's hat is like Indiana Jones' hat. That opening sequence where we find young Luffy with Shanks and then he gets his hat from him is a lot like that flashback in Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade where we see Indy get his hat.
That's a good comparison. I like that. Yeah. It's one of the few clear weaknesses that Luffy has. If you touch his hat and he does not want you to touch that hat, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And it gives it so much more dramatic weight great when, after Nami finally asks Luffy to help her, he takes his hat and puts it on her head, trusting her with something that important. And it becomes an important symbol, really, and you see why they're called the Straw Hat Pirates. That hat means everything to that whole crew.
I think at that moment, Nami is able to accept Luffy for who he is, and she is letting her guard down, because even up until that point, she is still not completely trusting of Luffy and the rest of the gang there. At that moment, that is him telling her, you can trust me, and I will be there for you.
There's a lot of power in that moment. Eiichiro Oda is so good at getting those dramatic moments. He really knows how to pace it out and really get the most out of it.
The art style in the manga is great too. I do feel like it's more consistently better in the manga than in the anime, where sometimes the anime feels flat sometimes, where like the art in the manga always feels more alive.
I've been noticing that with a lot of the manga I've been reading lately. Watching the My Hero Academia anime and comparing it to the manga lately, I realized just how much stronger Kohei Horikoshi's pencils are compared to the animation that I see going on. Don't get me wrong, the animation in the show is phenomenal, but there's so much detail that's in there that gets lost. And I think that's also why One Piece's art style is so cartoony. I think it lends itself really well to it, and it gives it a little extra energy too. So it lends itself to animation a little more easily. The thing I find most interesting is that before he made One Piece, Ichiro Oda worked as an assistant on Rurouni Kenshin, and you can really see that Kenshin influence in the beginning of the series. His artwork evolves as it goes on, as anyone's would, but I love seeing how things look in the beginning and seeing how much they changed over the years, and it looks so much like some sort of cartoonish version of Rurouni Kenshin at times.
One thing I do love in the manga is they tell that whole Buggy story arc of him getting his pieces back and then hooks up with Alvida. That is all told in these little illustrations that are so expressive, and it conveys so much information that I feel like those illustrations work better than the episode adaptation in the anime.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the only time the anime ever adapts any of the cover arcs. But I do think that just these little one-panel bits of story, they work so well and really help ease you into whatever is going on in that latest chapter.
That's a shame, because later on, after the Buggy Alvida one, there's the Kobe and Helmeppo. I was hoping there'd be an episode of that where we saw that animated.
Yeah, I think there may be an episode of it coming up after they get past Reverse Mountain, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, no, it's a shame that they don't adapt the cover arcs, because I think that there's a lot of fun you can have with it, and there's so much great bits of lore and even just callbacks. You have Buggy running into Gaimon, the guy stuck in the treasure chest.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. That dude with the crazy fro and then he's stuck in the chest. All he is a head and legs, and then he just wanders around with the chest being like most of his body.
He just wanders through the jungle and just hangs around with the animals, and he's okay with it. And you know what? Good on him. He's living his best life.
It's almost as if the story's acknowledging, to some degree, you have to accept the circumstances that you're in. Like, it doesn't matter how much you push. Sometimes maybe you're not going to get anywhere, but that's okay too. You could still find happiness where you are.
Yeah, that's a really great way of looking at Gaimon's story there. It's a tough world. You may not be able to get what you wanted, but you could still be happy.
It is interesting too when you think about the fact that Gaimon, he says to Luffy, you're like me. They are similar in the sense that like they are building their own reality. They're not looking at things from a bad angle. They're looking at things from a positive angle. Luffy doesn't take no for an answer, and Gaimon doesn't look at his situation as being fucked up. He makes the best of the situation that he's in, and he does try to do good by helping those animals that live on that island.
It's not what happened to me, it's what can I do to work with this. It's the great thing about it, you know? There's a lot of it that you can really latch onto, and it's a shame to me that people get so intimidated seeing that this has been in publication for 25 years and has over 1,000 chapters to its credit, and they see that, they think it's going to be an enormous commitment, and they run from it. And I feel like you're missing out on something very positive. It's entertaining, it's got moments that you'll end up laughing one moment, you'll end up crying during another. The fact that it unseated Dragon Ball for me as my favorite manga, I think really speaks volumes to how much I found that there was to really latch on as far as themes, stories, and the characters especially. The characters alone are worth the price of admission as far as I'm concerned.
It's a fun series. It fills you with a lot of positive energy. I guess I would say that if you're going to make a choice between the anime and the manga, I would recommend the manga over the anime, because I do feel like the manga, the quality is more consistent.
The manga is definitely the stronger of the the two. It's not that the anime is bad, it's just that it's a holdover from before anime started being made in seasons. Alright, we have to get an episode out every week. It's kind of a holdover from that. And it's my favorite manga for a reason. And I think we've covered a lot of those reasons already. Reading it's kind of like a party. You can go in there and you hang around with these characters. When you feel like it, you can take your break and you jump right back in whenever you feel like it.